All right. Good morning, everybody. It's Dr. Karen. We're about to get started in just a minute talking about evidence-based practice and SLP materials. So, obviously, if you are an SLP or related practitioner, you've heard the whole evidence-based practice debate, and you've probably navigated through lots of different materials for working with your students. So, as you know, that can be very time consuming to figure out the best things to use when you're working with your students on language skills, vocabulary, or any other skills that you might be working on. On the other hand, there's also the issue of looking at all these different commercially made materials or maybe SLP made materials, whether it be things on Teachers Pay Teachers, whether it be boom cards, or any of these other apps that are available. The question is always, can I trust these products? Do I know if they're in line with the research? And how do I navigate all of that? And as somebody who makes products, I wanted to share a little bit about the behind the scenes of how product creation actually works for people who make products. And then also some questions that I have gotten that kind of illuminate some of the misconceptions around what evidence-based practice actually means and how to apply that to your practice when it comes to picking the right materials. So first, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that can be an issue when you are looking at things like boom cards or Teachers Pay Teachers, and honestly, even other larger publications as well, when it comes to the publication process. So I will use, you know what, honestly, I'll just use myself as an example. I do have some things. I do have some boom cards. I do have some things on Teachers Pay Teachers, but I primarily sell things through my own website. So the process is pretty similar, except that I'm just not in one of those directories where you can find my stuff. So the thing about that is that if you are self-published and or if you're published on any of those other sites, there's not really anybody that is checking to say, hey, is this a peer-reviewed strategy that you're promoting? There's not really any regulation there as far as the quality of the product. So really, when you look on those sites, you might find one thing that's really good and then one thing that's not good at all and not high quality. So you just really never know what you're going to get. So yes, there's a lot of things on there, but the downside is that there's a lot of sifting through things that you have to figure out on your own, which can be very time consuming. And again, it's up to you to determine the quality. And a lot of times as a busy therapist, you don't want to spend tons of time sifting through all of these things and trying to figure out like what's my research-based strategy that I'm going to use with my students. A lot of people want to just be able to have the strategy and just go with it rather than having to do all this research and piecing together on their own. So that, while it can be problematic, obviously doesn't mean that just because something is published on one of those sites that it isn't good. It's just really up to you to figure out how you're going to use it. So the main thing to take away here is that a lot of times with these products, what you will get is something like, maybe like a card deck or some worksheets or a set of words. I know that I have on my site and on my website, I have some lists of tier 2 words. And so with those things that I offer, a lot of times people will say something like, is this evidence-based? Are these words evidence-based? Like, is this based on research, based on a developmental hierarchy? And that's really the wrong question to be asking. And I do get those questions a lot. And a lot of times it's coming from people who are well-meaning, thinking, you know what, I want to make sure that I'm doing the right things for my students and I'm supposed to be following the research or whatever. And the thing about that is that if you're asking, are these flashcards evidence-based? Are these words evidence-based? Well, no, flashcards are never evidence-based. Flashcards are literally like, a piece of paper. That is not evidence-based in itself. Same thing with like slide decks and some of these digital options. That's not the thing that's based on the research. It's what you do with them. So for example, it's not the word list in itself that is based on evidence. It's the methods that you use in order to study the word list. So I do provide those resources for people, but then it's up to you to be able to know how to use those things. Now, I do, in a lot of situations, I do have some additional trainings and things like that that will show you what to actually do with those word lists and those products. But I also just offer the products because a lot of times people feel like they just want that and they want to go and do their thing with it. So that's why I offer a number of different things. But that's really the question to be asking. It's not the product itself that is based on research. It's what you do with it. So when you're thinking about boom cards, Teachers Pay Teachers, Etsy, Pinterest, whatever place you're going to get your therapy materials, and people are saying, oh, that's not research based. Well, it doesn't matter. It's okay if that seller doesn't have like a massive list of peer-reviewed articles next to their product, as long as you're using it in a way that is in line with the strategy, you're fine. And same thing if you're a seller, like as long as it's something that you can use in a way that is in line with evidence, then you're good. Now, is it good if, for example, a seller lists articles? Am I going to be more likely to purchase from them if they are saying, here's this strategy, or here's this product, and here's are some references that I use to come up with it, and some strategies that are in line with research that, and this is how you use it? Are those probably going to be people that I'm going to buy for more? And do I recommend looking for that as somebody who is wanting to be a good consumer? Absolutely. Those are definitely additional selling points that are going to make your life easier. But again, when you're evaluating those products, it's more about what you're doing with it rather than whether the product itself or the word list itself or the flashcards or whatever it is based on research. Because there's not going to be a study that says this specific set of flashcards, it has this, there's not going to be a specific peer-reviewed study about every single set of flashcards or words, but there are going to be there are studies that show if we do certain vocabulary strategies or if we use certain frameworks for choosing vocabulary words, and if we take those word lists and do certain enriching activities with those words, then there are studies for that. So it's really more about what you do with it. So with that being said, obviously, you still want to be a good consumer, but if you are using some of those resources and you've seen some debates where people are like, this isn't based on rigorous research, no, it's fine. As long as you are doing your homework and making sure that you're using good strategies, you're good to go. Now, a lot of people have said when they have looked at some of my resources and said, like, this is great, this word list is great, but okay, sorry, my phone's ringing here. A lot of people have said, hey, what do I do with this? So if that's the case, if you are looking at some of those things like vocabulary word lists, if you're looking at things like just word selection, and you want ways to improve your students' comprehension and their spelling and writing skills, and aside from just the actual product itself, you want to know what to actually do with it, then I do have a training to share with you. It is February 24th right now as I'm recording this video. So if you are watching this week, I actually have a training coming up this weekend where I am going to be walking through the framework that I teach SLPs for doing word studies. So if you have some vocabulary lists that you want to know, okay, what do I actually do with these words? How do I study them with my students? How do I figure out how to actually build their comprehension and vocabulary? You can check out that training. It goes through the word study framework that I use to help improve comprehension and expression, which really functions as a language therapy framework that streamlines things for you so that you know sequentially what to do when you are when you're doing language therapy for kids in the school age, because as you know, language is really complex. It can be really hard to figure out where to start, what skills are high priority. So I do walk through a framework that I use to walk through that. And again, a lot of times people will say, is your course evidence-based? Well, no, there hasn't been a study on my course to show that, whatever, there hasn't been a peer-reviewed study on my course, but within the framework, what I do is for every single piece of the framework and for every single strategy that I show within that course, I will pull in peer-reviewed studies that show that these are strategies that work. So again, it's a framework, and that's why it works, and that's why it's flexible, so that it's something that you can apply all the way K-12, and you can tailor for students of different ages and ability levels, but also streamline it so you don't feel like you're kind of scattered in all over the place. So I will share the link to this training below this video. If you are watching this video after the first week of March in 2021, then I will also share an additional resource for you as well, that where you can get on my mailing list and learn some additional things about how to build your students' language skills. And again, with a lot of my techniques that I teach, like, materials are great. I know that it's fun to have a nice app that you can use where things are compiled, but I am more of the mindset of teaching you frameworks so that you, if you needed to, could walk into a session with a pencil and paper and know what to do, so that you're not dependent on materials. Do I think it's fine to pull in materials to make things more fun and interesting? Yes, but it should start with the framework, and then you pull the materials into the framework, not the other way around. That's where a lot of times people get confused. So I'll share that training with you in the comments, and yeah, I hope you found this helpful, and thank you so much for watching.